Hey, want to see a prime example of religious dishonesty? Stick around, because today we're going to look at an apologist who not only admits to following dishonest practices, but he's proud of it. And not only is he proud of it, he enthusiastically endorses it. Because honesty doesn't matter when it comes to religion. Here's why they're all so laughably absurd. I get a lot of heat for calling religious apologists dishonest. But here's yet another apologist doing exactly what I accuse them of doing and being entirely blind to their failures. Christ Culture and Coffee isn't even aware of what he's doing. That's entirely common, that these people are just so blinded by their absurd delusions and incapable of examining their own reality from anything remotely resembling an objective standpoint. I'm sure this guy can't see anything at all wrong with his dishonesty, but he's still being dishonest. So let's go watch him point out exactly what he's doing wrong, while still pretending that he's doing nothing wrong. It's just pathetic.
With all the different evidence there is for Christianity, it can be kind of difficult when we're talking with our friends and family about what we want to share as a topic.
Which evidence would that be? Because rational people understand that the things thrown around by apologists and claimed to be evidence, it really isn't evidence at all. So we're going to go back to the dictionary to find out what evidence is and why you have none of it. Evidence is the available body of facts or information indicating whether a belief or proposition is true or valid. Now, produce some facts or information which indicates that your beliefs are true or valid. Go ahead. I dare you. You won't be able to do it. All you'll be able to do is produce rationalizations, which is something entirely different. The religious, they don't seem to understand the problem. And I don't really find that at all surprising.
A secret that every apologist knows is that when we're sharing with people, we want to make sure that we're only addressing and answering questions that are being asked.
And not, actually proving that what you believe is actually true. Because the religious can't actually do that. It's why the apologists run away and hide when rational atheists come on the scene, because the questions that we ask, and we phrase them specifically the way that we do for a reason, but those are questions that the religious have no response to, and they've got to twist things in order to get anything remotely intelligent to come out of their mouths. Have you noticed that? Where we'll ask an apologist a very specific question, and they'll hem and they'll haw, and then they'll answer something quite different than what was asked. They're just trying to get back on script.
That's going to be the topic for this video in Christ, Culture, and Coffee. Sometimes it can be really hard to stay focused on the topic when we're discussing apologetics-related terms with our friends.
And that's exactly what I just described. Now, it's easy to see if you know what to watch for. For example, watch Frank Turek sometime. He's a master at this. Someone will ask him a difficult question. He will restate the question, slightly different than what was asked, and then he'll go on to answer his own question, not the one anybody asked him. And of course, you don't see him engage in a back and forth conversation. He takes questions on stage, and then he gets to run with it, even if he's just running off a cliff. Nobody gets to stop him and say, "Hey, wait a minute, that's not what I said." If that ever happened at one of his live shows, it certainly never shows up on his YouTube clips. I'm sure he just cuts the microphone for anyone he thinks might be potentially difficult. It's all just a stage show.
When we're in that process, we want to make sure that we're only addressing the stuff that they're asking, so that way we can make sure that we're making the most of our apologetic method.
Except you don't. And people have brought up to me that when I'm asking questions to the religious, my questions tend to have a lot of words. They're not simple. They tend to be very complex. And they are that way for a reason. It's because I know how apologetics works, and I know the tricks that apologists use. They are designed specifically to stop apologists from using the tricks that I know they're going to try to use. It might not stop them from trying, because honestly, what else are they going to do? But it makes them look like idiots when they do, and I don't tend to stay quiet when they try to pull a Frank Turek and go off talking to themselves instead of answering the question that I asked. That, of course, makes them really mad. It's actually kind of funny to watch in practice.
Let me give you an example from my personal life. When I was a freshman in high school, I went on this trip where we were talking to atheists on a college campus. When we were engaging with this one atheist, he brought up how he believed that there was so much evidence for evolution that it was impossible for us to be ignoring that. How can we see all the clear evidence that there was for evolution and simply say that it's not real and that we believe in God? So he asked me this question. He said, "Give me your answer." So in turn, I started going on a wild tangent about how we can know there's evidence of creation, and I started getting into Noah's Ark, and I started talking about the flood and scientific reasoning behind it.
Which means that you were engaged in a distraction. You avoided a difficult question that you had no answer for by falling back on apologetic tricks. You were answering your own question, not the one that you were asked. And honestly, Noah's Ark? That's something that even the most insane theists don't even talk about anymore. It has been so soundly debunked on every single conceivable level that you've got to have something severely wrong upstairs if you try to present it as anything but myth and allegory. But that's not saying something good about you, Tyler. You're doing everything that I predicted that you would. At least you're consistent, I guess.
And none of that had anything to do with what he was asking me. So overall, through that process, I learned that when it comes to addressing certain issues that are being asked of us as apologists, we need to be making sure that we're focusing on the specific question being asked.
Which you just said that you didn't do. You people are so far out in the weeds that you don't even know where you are. If the question is, how do you address the evidence for evolution, then the only credible answer that you can give is explaining how you address the evidence for evolution. Talking about mythic men on big boats, that doesn't do that. That's not addressing the question. That's avoiding the question. Are you listening to yourself?
Because at the end of that conversation, it ended really awkwardly. He ended up just saying, "Oh, well, that's good for you. Glad that you're super confident in Noah's Ark and that you understand how that worked, but I'm just going to go on with my day now."
Because he knew that you were being dishonest and wouldn't actually be able to address anything that he said. You are mistaking someone giving up on you for victory. Yeah. That's just being delusional. And maybe that is a secret of apologetics. Just make your detractors walk away, shaking their heads sadly because you can't actually answer any question that they put to you. That's not awkward, that's damning. You failed. He knew that if you were going to take something as ridiculous as Noah's Ark and the farcical flood story seriously, there is absolutely no hope for you. And for some bizarre reason, that makes you happy.
Because at that point, I didn't answer his question, and he didn't understand what that had to do with the topic at hand because it was something that was unrelated to the discussion.
Because you were running away from the question because you had no credible answer. That's not how intelligent, rational adults operate. I'm sure he just thought, oh look, here's a crazy kid. Let's go somewhere else because we're not going to get anything worthwhile here. And again, for some reason, you're proud of that. You're making videos on YouTube about that. You're telling other people this is how you ought to operate. There is something seriously wrong in what passes for your thought processes.
And so I know that as apologists, we can get excited with all of this truth and knowledge that we possess.
Which truth or knowledge is that? Because you just proved that you have none of either, at least in answer to that specific question. This is not the response that you give when you have knowledge. It's the answer that you give when your mind is addled with delusion. You have no good answer, so you simply go off and ignore the question in favor of something emotionally satisfying that you already believe for completely indefensible reasons. And again, for some reason, you're proud of that.
But sometimes it can be really difficult to come out with all of those different topics in a clear and concise manner that applies only to the conversation.
Which just goes to show that you're not being honest. You weren't there to answer their questions. You were there to preach. Therefore, you ignored a difficult question and just went into sermon mode. I honestly don't even know what to say here. He's just admitting to his own dishonesty. He and most other apologists, they all operate this way. And the second that you point it out, they get offended. Mostly because they got caught. They can't be so ignorant as to not understand what they're doing, can they? Or I don't know, maybe they can.
So, the secret that we're sharing for this episode is that we want you to only answer questions that are being asked.
Like you didn't do. No, your secret is to lie through your teeth and pretend that any answer you give, no matter how nonsensical, must be valid if it pushes your religious narrative. I don't know, it's really hard being right all the time, because this is Religious Apologetics 101. When in doubt, lie, dodge, be dishonest. Don't answer difficult questions, because difficult questions don't exist. They're just an excuse to take a hard left at Albuquerque and preach. And when people get frustrated at your dishonesty and walk away, tell yourself that you won, because at least they aren't asking you any difficult questions anymore. Is there something else that I'm not seeing here? Come on, Tyler, please explain.
So with that, thank you for watching this video on Secret Every Apologist Knows. Only answer questions that they are asking. Be sure to follow us and look up more of our videos on different topics for secrets that apologists know.
The only thing you apparently know how to do is lie. And how to get your audio mixing completely wrong, but that's not exactly a surprise. Turn the music down a little bit, pal. Nobody can hear what you're saying. Regardless, this isn't about assessing poor YouTube video choices. It's about assessing apologists. And this is just one more example of the rank dishonesty of the apologetic mind. And they pretend, for some weird reason, like this is a virtue. No, a virtue would have been to address the question as asked. Explain how you can dismiss the absurd amount of evidence that evolution has. It's the most well-defended idea in all of biology, and the only thing he can do is throw out a myth that has absolutely no defense whatsoever because it makes him feel good. And then he trots that out as a victory of some sort, at least in the mind of the religious lunatic. And they don't understand why we think they're full of shit for some reason. The absurdity here is mind-blowing, but this is how the religious operate. Honesty doesn't matter so long as you're spouting your religious nonsense. Welcome to my world, people. Welcome to my world.
Bum